And welcome back, everybody, to another edition of NB8 right here on Wood TV Plus. Phil Penarski here, joined once again by AJ Evans. AJ, another exciting week. We've got some big Pistons news to talk to, mainly being the fact that you were at one of the games this past weekend. We'll get to that in just a little bit. Also, we are approaching the quarter season mark for the NBA season, which is crazy to think about, but again, just serves as a reminder that once you're in the NBA season, it goes by fast. We'll get to our best and worst things that we've seen this week as well. But AJ, let's start off by talking about the Detroit Pistons, who were on a 13-game winning streak the last time we talked, and unfortunately that streak came to an end the very next game against the Boston Celtics, and then the losing ways continued on Friday when they took on the Orlando Magic. That was the game that you were at, AJ. We'll talk about that in a bit, but they are back in the winning stretch, winning back-to-back games over the Heat and the Atlanta Hawks, so they are back on a 2-game winning streak. But AJ, again, two losses, 2 back-to-back losses. Got kind of scary. They're probably going into that game against Miami, trying to avoid that third game. But let's focus on that first game at against Boston at the TD Garden. I mean, what did you really make of that game? You know, it was something we hadn't seen since October. I think I have it right here. That was their first loss since October 27th. So it had been some time since we last seen the Pistons lose. I mean, what did you kind of make of that? And just kind of seeing it all kind of unfold in front of you.
Yeah, you know, Phil, I think the game just kind of got away from them. I think the stakes were obviously really high. There was all this attention around the fact that they had won 13 straight and that the last time the Pistons had done so was when they won the championship in 04 and 89. So it was also a nationally televised game. So it just felt like from the beginning, the game kind of got away from them and it seemed like it was a seesaw back and forth. I felt like it was the first time this year where Cade looked a little bit tired to me, but they still put on a great performance, and it still came down to the very end, Phil, which I think is the most impressive thing out of this. It was a team that did not really play the best of their potential, but they still took a very good Boston team down to the wire. So you got to give credit to the Celtics. They had a terrific performance. Derek White was phenomenal. Right. He went absolutely crazy, and their crowd was rocking. That was a big-time game for them. I know they were looking for an upset, and they got it, but at the end of the day, I couldn't be too angry. I was just a little frustrated, like I said, because the game got away from them, and you want to see the streak continue for as long as it possibly can. But overall, they're still playing really high-level basketball. Not much to be mad at the end of the day, Phil.
Right. Yeah, I think it is kind of important to think about it in the context of a full NBA season. You know, there are 82 games. You are going to lose a game. We had kind of said that eventually they were going to lose, but again, it's still sad to see that it happened. And you mentioned Cade kind of looking a little tired. I mean, he still had 42 points. I feel like a lot of the offensive load is getting put on him. The bench was a concerning thing for me there. But again, like you said, it was good that they still kept it close. You know, Boston, I know they're not maybe the Boston Celtics that we're used to seeing the past couple of years. They're still a very good team. Coach Joe Mazzulla, he's still got those guys ready to go. They still take a ton of threes, and if they're hitting those threes, it's going to be a long night. And they play defense, so again, losing the Celtics, not the end of the world. But again, just, you know, a little sad to see. But there is one positive note. I know last week we talked about how the last 2 times the Pistons won 13 games in a row, they won the championship. Well, they also did not make it to 14 games and extend that streak, just like these Pistons. And also like the Pistons from the past, they lost on the road to an Eastern Conference team. So hopefully, again, we just kind of are fluctuating and going down that same history rabbit hole. One thing I did want to touch on, though, is the bench. I thought the bench was not what we've been used to seeing, really, especially in that Boston game. And that kind of extended into that Magic game as well, where you had the starters all in the positives as far as box plus minus, and the entire bench was in the negatives. I have the stat right here. You know, all the starters were a +9 combined, a total of a +9. And the bench players, you know, they were anywhere from -5 to -22, I think, in that game. I mean, Paul Reed was the only one that wasn't, I think, negative double digits, and he only played 6 minutes in that game. AJ, you were at the Magic game. Before we touch on what we saw on the court, how was it being at Little Caesars Arena and, you know, on Black Friday, taking in all the family fun?
Oh, man, just for starters, just being there was terrific. I mean, the atmosphere was incredible. Right. Everyone was super energetic, and you know, the holiday season, obviously, everyone was in a really festive mood, so that made things really exciting. The game itself was pretty exciting as well. The Magic are on a roll right now. There was a lot to be impressed by, even without Ben Carroll. They have been just absolutely rolling. I was really impressed with Anthony Black. He's continued to ascend. He averaged I think 13 points a game last season. Now he's up to 14, but he dismantled Detroit's defense at times throughout that game, and it was really nice. It's been really nice to see his career progress the way it has.
Right.
But like you said, Phil, the bench really did struggle, and it's a little bit concerning, I would say. I'm not worried yet, but it goes back to what we've talked about. When you have a lot of young guys, when you have a young rotation with starters and guys coming off the bench that you need to play meaningful minutes every night, it's hard to get everyone on the same page collectively, like, hey, this is what we need from you, whether you're playing 9 minutes or 29 minutes, whatever the case may be. And I think some of these guys are finding that out the hard way. But one thing that I do want to touch on that I was a little concerned about is the shooting, Phil. Cade has really struggled from the free throw line, and I think those struggles were exacerbated against, obviously, Boston and Orlando, where he missed 2 critical free throws at the end. But he has not shot the ball particularly well this season. He's shooting 30% from 3, and he's shooting, I believe, 81% from the free throw line, which is down from last season, I think, when he shot 84. So I'm a little concerned with that just across the board, like I said, because he's not shooting too well. And I know some of that might have to do with efficiency and the fact that he's simply taking a lot of shots and he's shouldering a lot of this offensive load. And he's also driving the ball quite a bit more, too. He's scoring a lot of points in the paint. But either way, I'd like to see him get both of those percentages up. But like you said, Phil, the rotation has simply just got to be a little bit better, has to be stronger. Those are guys you have to be able to rely on. And these guys are more than capable of that. We saw that at the start of this season, and we saw a bit of it last night. I thought Ron Holland had one of his best performances last night. But you need it from everybody across the board if you want to remain competitive and stay at the top of the East.
Right. Now, and obviously, guys will have down nights every now and again, but you don't like to see it for 2 games in a row, especially when you are on such a high pace. You know, you'd like to see everybody just kind of keep going and keep developing as the way that they're going and not maybe taking that step back. And again, those were 2 back-to-back losses for the Pistons. I mean, they had only lost 2 games going into that Celtics game, so they already doubled the amount of losses that they had on the season in just the span of 3 days. So again, a little bit worrisome. And before we get into sort of the highs, there was, again, I feel like Cade is taking a lot of responsibility right now for not only those losses, but again, just the offensive play for the Pistons right now. I mean, he's getting a lot of points, which is great to see, but like you touched on, his shooting is a little streaky right now. I mean, he's not necessarily shooting at a very efficient clip and also at the free throw line. And I wonder, and this was going to be a question I wanted to ask you, is he maybe taking on too much on the offensive side of the ball? You know, obviously he's getting a lot of help on the defensive side, but when the ball's in his hand and they're running that half-court offense, I feel like every single time they're down the floor, he is touching the ball, which you want in your star. But again, I feel like when you've got some of these other guys that maybe could help pick up the slack a little bit, I mean, it feels almost like maybe you're not as trusting of them, or maybe you just think that Cade is, he needs to have the ball in his hands this much, and eventually that could be proven costly, just how much wear and tear he's been having on the season so far.
Yeah, it is something I think to definitely be worried about at this point, just given the fact, like you said, so much of the responsibility on offense falls on him and him entirely. I think the thing that I always think back to is the fact that Jaden Ivey was playing at such a high level when he went down with that injury. I mean, it was only a portion of the season, but he was shooting 40% from 3. He was averaging 17 points a game, and he was handling a lot of the ball handling and playmaking responsibilities when Cade went out. And he was also, too, handling things when Cade was on the floor. They put him off the ball. And I think within the last few weeks, Phil, this team has gotten a little bit away from putting Asar Thompson at the point and letting him handle some of those responsibilities. So I'd like to see them get back to that, because I think Thompson is more than capable of handling that. And I think he could handle an increased role right now. It seems like I said, they've kind of gone away from him from that aspect for the last couple of weeks. But no, Cade, he's playing at such a high level. He's doing so much, but you do wonder if it is going to ultimately come back to haunt them, you know, if it will lead to some wear and tear, or simply just a straight up fatigue by the end of the year. This is a team that is obviously eyeing the postseason. You want to have a long run in the playoffs, but you have to keep your guys fresh, and you need more than one guy who is the constant creator and the focus of your offense. Obviously, that's what your superstar is, but you need a strong supporting cast, and you need guys that can handle the playmaking and the ball handling, and that can facilitate the offense.
Absolutely. Well, and, you know, I mean, we've touched on it a couple of times in weeks past, is the fact that there's only one ball, but there feels like there's at any given point, 12 Pistons that could suit up and take the floor and be your starting lineup at any given point. So I think now would be the time, at least the way I view it, now would be the time to kind of give Cade that bit of a rest. Keep him still in the action, obviously, and, getting him ready for the postseason. But, especially some of these middle games, we're still 2 months away from the All-Star break at this point. So I'm saying you still have time to kind of work out a better system and get him where he's still playing at that high clip and still, potentially being an all-NBA participant, but then he's also getting that much-needed rest and being fresh for the postseason.
Yeah, and also, too, I think another thing to note going off of that is he's driving the ball a lot. He's taking the ball to the paint a lot, and you take a beating when you're doing that, regardless of how big or strong you are. And Cade is as physical of a guard as there is in the NBA right now, but that takes a toll on you as well. So I think Dennis Jenkins has regressed a little bit within the last couple of weeks, but I mean, this has probably been a lot for him, both on and off the floor. It's been a complete whirlwind for him in his career, but these guys are more than capable of handling increased responsibilities, and I think they'll get back to that. I think right now it just seems like everyone's in a bit of a slump, but it goes back to what we talked about, Phil. You got to play high-level basketball every night out. And it's easy. I think it's easier for a coach to get 5 guys to do that, but this is a rotation really full of a lot of young guys, Phil. I mean, you have some veterans mixed in. You got Karis LeVert, you got Duncan Robinson. Those guys are professionals, but you have a team full of a lot of guys who haven't necessarily played winning basketball at the highest level yet. They're learning that on the fly. And so everyone's trying to figure out, but I have all the faith in the world that they will.
Yeah, obviously, again, just 2 losses, and as I mentioned, they're already back on a 2-game winning streak.
Yeah,
they got bounced back. They had a really great win against the Miami Heat.
Yeah.
They won 138 to 135. So obviously high scoring. Defense not really at the top of its game in that one. Duncan Robinson obviously getting a bit of revenge on his former team. He had 18 points in that one. But so again, it was great to see. But again, something that we've also touched on a little bit is finishing for the Detroit Pistons. I mean, they were up by 17 in that fourth quarter, and then it ended up only winning by 3. So I don't know how scared you are at that fact at all. But again, it's just something that we're sort of starting to notice a little bit is that they jump out to maybe some of these big time leads, but then they don't necessarily keep the foot on the neck. They don't keep the foot on the gas.
Yeah.
They kind of give up a little bit and lets some of these other teams get back in it. And Miami is no slouch. I think they're 3rd in the East right now. I mean, they very well could have come back and put Detroit down 3 games in a row.
Yeah, no, for sure. You took the words out of my mouth, Phil. You have to be able to keep your foot on the gas. It goes back to what we've said time and time again. 3 quarters in the NBA isn't going to cut it most nights. You have to play a full 4 quarters, and a really good first and second quarter can come back to haunt you if you're mediocre in the second half. That's just how the league goes, regardless of who you're playing, who you're up against, or what your record is. Nobody is safe on any given night. So these guys they're figuring it out. They're slowly but surely figuring it out. I think it's been an adjustment. And also, too, a handful of guys have missed time. So I think that's kind of messed with the rotation. So I'm sure guys are also, too, trying to settle back into their roles and figure out where they can make an impact throughout the game. Like, hey, second quarter when Cade's out, this is my time to step up.
Right.
Now, if I'm back on the floor with them in the fourth quarter, I need to take on a different role. But for now, this is what I need to do. So it's sort of like the game within the game. Right. I think that a lot of these guys are learning. But it's been exciting to see, and I think it's been impressive. You said it, Phil, like the team is still winning. They're still winning. They're still doing well, still playing at a high level. They're just some things that you'd like to see them clean up, which is completely normal for a very good team in December.
Right, yeah. Hard to nitpick when a team is as good of a team as they are right now. Sure. And real quick, we thought that 3-game win over the Miami Heat was pretty close. Well, they had an even closer win against the Atlanta Hawks, only winning by 99 to 98. So no team even scoring in the triple digits. Very old school NBA affair, I feel like. One thing, though, that was really kind of I guess alarming for me in this game in particular. And again, each game, there's only 1 or 2 things that you can really say, I didn't like that, or I'm kind of concerned about that. It was the shooting, and I guess facing off against a really good defensive team like Atlanta. They've got some really great defensive players on that team, and you could really see that it was impacting Detroit in that game. I mean, they forced 23 Detroit turnovers. I mean, that's one of the highest numbers that we've already seen from Detroit, and that was something that we've talked about them struggling with already. And of course, they only shot 19% from 3. Now, Detroit does not take that many threes already, but again, so when you're taking them and you're only shooting 19%, that is not a good sign. Again, Detroit came out with the victory. They still won. But again, these are some of the things that, when you are this good, that you kind of have to pay attention to.
No, for sure. And those are two, I think, of the biggest issues that Detroit has dealt with this year. Shooting, the team has not shot well from beyond the three-point line. They just haven't. They have been able to compound that issue, or they've been able to correct that issue with a lot of drives and a lot of points in the paint. They're atop the league in that, and they've sort of lived on a steady diet of just, I think, getting to the rim and making free throws. But collectively also, too, the Pistons have not taken the best care of the ball. They're right now 5th worst in the league with 16.2 turnovers a game. They're tied with Golden State in that number. So that's another thing to pinpoint. Obviously, these are things you nitpick, but you need to be able to take care of the ball if you want to be at the top of your respective conference, and if and when you get to the playoffs. It's very, very important. But I think that's just another sign of how young this team is and the fact that they're learning on the fly. But those two issues, like you said, Phil, have sort of been exacerbated with some of these losses.
All right, well, we are a quarter of the way through the NBA season already, and AJ and I, in our first episode, we gave kind of our predictions for season awards, who's going to make it to the finals, who was going to win the finals. Well, now that we're a quarter in and we've actually seen these teams take the court and actually play some NBA basketball, we decided to revisit that now that we're a quarter of the way through, see if maybe we are staying the same on some of those topics, or maybe we've kind of updated our decisions. So let's start with MVP, AJ. We both picked Anthony Edwards to win. Are you sticking with Anthony Edwards? He's averaging just under 29 points a game. Yeah. Are you sticking with Anthony Edwards? Or are you going with somebody else?
I'm not sticking with him, Phil.
Oh, no. Okay, well, neither am I. So.
And it has nothing to do with him individually. Right. I think he has been terrific. He's been as good as I expected him to be. He's averaging almost 30 points a game. His shooting percentages are still up. He's shooting 40% from 3, or I think 39. He's been terrific, and he's just continued to develop, and it's been so cool to see his career trajectory. Like, I have no issues, and I've had nothing to be upset about with what he's done individually. I just simply think the Timberwolves right now are in a place where they're not going to win enough games for him to be in contention for it. I think if they were in the 6th seed by the end of the year, he would have had to have had a historic season for them to give him the MVP award. I don't think averaging 30, being 6th in the West is going to cut it. And as of right now, they're 6th. So things could very well change. They're 12-8. This is still a very good team. This is a team that made the Western Conference Finals for the past 2 seasons. So if they're at the top of the West by the end of the year, I think he very well may have a case for it. But I don't know, Phil. The voting has gotten weird with the MVP race over the last couple of seasons. But for me, my guy right now is Cade Cunningham.
Okay,
I know I'm a bit of a homer for that. But, I mean, look, he's been as good as anyone else in the league right now. And he has been instrumental to this team's success, so much to the point where we're concerned about his load at this point. And we're only a quarter of the way through the year, as you said. So, but, I mean, I've always felt the MVP award goes to the best team, to the best player on the best team. And right now, I mean, outside of the Thunder, of course, I don't see anyone standing in the Pistons' way. And I think you have to give credit to what he's been able to do. Like I said, he's just so instrumental in everything Detroit has done on both ends of the floor, being honest. And so he would have my vote for MVP if the season were to end today. Yeah.
Well, and you got to think, the story of the season also plays into that voting. You have to think even just a little bit, the fact that Cade has been with the Pistons from the lowest of lows 2 years ago to now being at the highest of highs right now, or highest of highs that they've felt in a very long time. So I could totally see Cade taking that award. I am also changing my pick from Anthony Edwards. Again, nothing against Ant. I think he's still one of my favorite players to watch. I still think he's an incredible ball player. But have you seen what Luka Doncic has done this season so far? He's averaging 35, 9, and 9. Almost a 35-point triple-double on the Lakers. Again, I think this is also playing into the story element, because you got to think this was a guy that loved Dallas, wanted to be in Dallas, gets traded, is upset about the trade, and is making the most of it on the Lakers. Now, I get it. I get the, moving from Dallas to LA, maybe not the worst thing in the world for him personally, but again, he wanted to obviously be in Dallas, and now he's kind of getting this second run, and he's making the most of it. He seems in much better shape. He's scoring at will. His defense even has looked a little bit better. I really like Luka. I've always said that he's always in that MVP conversation. I just didn't know if he was ever going to win, just because of he's too good. but with no extracurriculars to kind of go off with that. Shea obviously kind of leading the Thunder to the historic rise, or Jokic kind of doing the impossible on the court day in and day out. I mean, I always thought he was going to kind of lose it to those. This year, he's taken it up even another notch. I've got Luka as the MVP this year, at least through this first quarter.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has a legitimate case, Phil. I mean, and the world is watching him. Yeah. Everyone wanted to see what he was going to do. He obviously had a terrific summer that everybody was talking about. He's said on record he was in the best shape of his life heading into this year. So it's been really cool to see him rebound from this. I know he was pretty devastated after the Dallas trade, and I can't blame him. I know he thought he was going to be a Maverick for the rest of his life, but it's been awesome to see him bounce back and to turn this into a positive. And the Lakers land yet again another big star, and they'll probably have him for however long he plays. It seems like it's the perfect match, to be honest with you. So it's been really cool to see, and I think he's definitely somebody voters would have to feel inclined to pay attention to.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's move it over to the bench now, and let's talk about coaches of the year so far. I'm sticking with JB Bickerstaff. I don't know how you feel about your previous pick. I still like JB. I mean, I already had him there when I thought the Pistons were probably going to be the third or fourth best team in the East. Now they're this good. I mean, it's kind of hard not to give it to him. Again, he came in after the horrible losing season 2 years ago and has totally revamped this team into what they are today, making the playoffs last year and then being, title favorites out of the East right now this season.
Yeah, no, it's been incredible what he's been able to do in such a short span. I mean, he's gotten all of these guys to believe not only in themselves, but in his vision, and he's gotten them to execute it almost every single night, like we talked about. Now we're just nitpicking small things. These young guys trying to figure out their spot within the rotation and making sure that they're on top of it for every minute of every night. It's been incredible, and I don't know too many head coaches in the league that would have been able to come to Detroit in the spot that they were in and do what he's been able to do in, less than 3 seasons. So it's been remarkable, and he's definitely, I think, somebody that voters would have to pay attention to as well. For me, I had Mitch Johnson of the San Antonio Spurs. And you know what, Phil? I'm sticking with them at this point.
I don't hate that pick.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, the Spurs, they're 13-6. They're 5th in the West. And I think the more impressive thing has been that they've had a handful of injuries. De'Aaron Fox did not start the year. Stephon Castle has spent time out. Victor Wembanyama has been out for a little bit. And they're still just finding ways to stay afloat. So I think when he's able to get all those guys back and to get them reintegrated into the offense, get them playing together again, I think the Spurs will not only vault in the standings, but I think people will begin to pay attention to the job he's doing as well. Because it's really hard, like we've talked about, Phil, when you're balancing a handful of guys coming in and out of the rotation. And that's where a coach really gets to sort of see what he's made of. And so it's been really cool to see him sort of balance that unique challenge and just find ways to win without these guys and with them, depending on whatever night it is. So I think the Spurs are going to finish off the year pretty strongly as long as these guys can get back healthy and remain healthy through the duration of the year. But I'm going to stick with him. I like my vote there. So and I like what he's doing down there.
All right. Well, one thing I really have loved about this season is just all the different surprises, both positive and negative. So, again, quarter of the way through the season, AJ, what's been the biggest surprise, whether positive or negative? What's been the biggest surprise to you so far this year?
The biggest surprise for me, Phil, has been the Sacramento Kings. Yeah. They are, as you know, I picked them to finish 8th in the West. I said they would make the playoffs. Well, right now they are 5-16. They're 13 in the Western Conference. They are at the bottom, and they're near the bottom in both offensive rating and defensive rating. They're 27th in offense, 25th in defense. I think 2 of the only positives are that they're playing fast. They're 7th in pace right now, and they're taking pretty good care of the ball. They're currently 5th in turnovers per game, 5th in fewest turnovers per game. So that's been impressive, but I was really optimistic that this odd mix of veterans and young guys would find a way to just be cohesive and work alongside each other, and that has not been the case. It's been a rough year in Doug Christie's first season at the helm, and I think this front office they're going to have to answer the elephant in the room come February, which is going to be, do we have a fire sale? Do we tear this whole thing down and rebuild? Because you have a lot of veterans on this team, and it's clearly not working. Russell Westbrook, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, these are all really talented individual players, but what can you get for them right now? Because I think there is some value within these guys, but this franchise has got to figure out what direction it's headed in. And so I'm really concerned, but Yeah, Phil, they're my biggest surprise, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, and again, you got to think about the Kings. I mean, just a couple of years ago, Light the Beam. I mean, that was like the talk of the town. You know, the Kings were fun to watch again.
Yeah.
And now, again, they had been so bad for so long. Then they got good, and then again, they just like have fallen back to earth. And obviously, the Sabonis injury has played a role in that. But I don't think even if he was there, would this team be back in playoff contention? Would they be 500? I don't know. I still think they would be struggling a lot. So again, just very surprised by the Kings. I didn't pick them to go to the playoffs, but this next team I did, and they might be even worse than the Kings, and that is the Los Angeles Clippers. Again, I've said when we redo this, I'm going to be just switching the Clippers and Lakers out because I think I had the Clippers as like the 4th or 5th seed in the West, and they have just been so bad. They've lost 8 of their last 10, they are 5-16. They have 2 separate 5-game losing streaks, and they've lost in back-to-back games to the Mavericks and the Grizzlies. And as a Grizzlies fan, I can say this wholeheartantly: if you lose to the Grizzlies and Mavericks in back-to-back games, you're not a very good team. And both of those games were at home as well. And I honestly cannot figure out this team. I don't know if there's something else. You know, all the stuff that happened in the offseason with Kawhi and the potential money issues that were surrounding the Clippers and paying him under the table through all these different things. You know, I don't know if that's playing into why maybe there's this dark cloud over them. But again, you look at this roster, really the only major loss they had was Norm Powell. And he's down in Miami playing great. And the Clippers, I mean, what are they doing? I mean, I love Norm Powell as a player, but was he the glue guy for this team? If that's the case, there are bigger issues for the Los Angeles Clippers. Ty Lue should be, he's probably on the hot seat despite how good of a coach we all know he is. But again, you can't be doing this to a Clippers team. I know they're a lot of older stars, but again, it's just shocking to see them be this bad. You know, I figured they would at least be in the play-in. If all hell broke loose and they were a worse team this year, I figured they would at least be the 9 or 10 seed. The fact that they probably won't even sniff that is crazy to me.
Yeah, Phil, I told you at the start of the year, I couldn't put too much stock into them just given the fact that it seems like something always goes wrong.
Right.
It's always felt that way for me back to when Paul George was there. Obviously, I felt that way, I think, at one point, more so when they got to the postseason. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, now it just seems like it's affecting them every year. Seems like it's an annual thing. Something goes wrong, a player gets hurt, something happens, and things go awry. So, Phil, I wish I could say I was surprised.
Yeah, no, again, I that is my biggest surprise. I probably should have been listening to you a little bit more, AJ, but, you know, it's just, again, I don't really like the Clippers. The Grizzlies and Clippers have always had those back and forth, so I guess in that sense, I'm kind of glad that this is happening to them, but, you know, again, for my overall predictions and, you know, trying to prove that I know ball, definitely not helping me out. But that brings us to our final prompt that we want to get to today, and that is who we think will win the NBA Finals. And, AJ, I know that you picked the Minnesota Timberwolves to win the NBA Finals. We talked a little bit about the Timberwolves and Ant already. I mean, I don't think you're going to be sticking with that pick for who you think is going to be winning the Finals.
Right now, Phil, I'm not, you know, I don't know, maybe I'm flip-flopping a little bit too much, but look, I don't think anyone is playing at the level the Thunder are at right now. Right. They've just been absolutely incredible. They're doing it on both ends of the floor. There has been no championship hangover. These guys are young. They're still ready to get after it, and they're just continuing to improve. So I have them winning the title. I know that's a bit of a generic pick, but as of right now, I really like what they're doing, and I don't see anyone getting in their way.
Yeah, no, it's not generic. We want to be right about this. And obviously, the Thunder are the best team in the NBA right now. Would not be surprised if they were to hold up to Larry O'Brien once again and repeat as champions. But I'm going to stick with my guts. I'm going to stick with the Denver Nuggets. I think especially if they can make just one last move, I don't know who maybe is in their potential lookout box or who they're potentially trying to scout out for. But if they could maybe just grab one other scorer or one other wing defender or something like that, somebody to come off the bench even, I feel like this team is neck and neck with OKC. And they could take that to 7 games. And if they beat OKC, whoever's coming out of the West, I think has a good shot at being the finals champion. Sure. So I think that's going to be what it comes down to. I picked Jokic as an all-NBA guy. You know, we've seen what he's done. I mean, he's having he's averaging 30, 13, and 11 on crazy efficiency. He's doing things that we've never seen before. I always trust him. I think, they're maybe one piece away, but I think they're going to do that. I think they're going to pull the trigger on somebody. And once they get Aaron Gordon back from injury and Christian Braun as well, I mean, that's going to be a pretty deadly team as well.
Yeah, they have all the ingredients to hoist the trophy this year too, Phil. So I really like that pick.
Well, again, we're only a quarter of the way through. We still got another couple of weeks, another couple of months left of the regular season before we even hit the playoffs. Time will tell on if these takes are hot or if they're freezing cold. But again, time will tell on that. AJ, as always, thank you so much for joining me, my friend. We'll see you again next time, and we'll see everybody else again next time right here on NB8.